Hey guys, let's take a second to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean and the upcoming changes where the pirates will no longer be auctioning off women. Okay, I just need to weigh in on this. And Disney have announced that they're updating Pirates of the Caribbean by politically correcting the famous auction scene, with the Red Wench no longer being auctioned off and is now going to become a pirate. Loads of people online have been outraged by this, and I find it quite funny personally that people are outraged that Disney are removing, in my opinion, quite a controversial topic. I appreciate that when the ride was originally built, sensibilities towards what pirates were like were completely different, and I think there was a sense of excitement by that lifestyle and that the way that pirates were perceived back then. We have to bear in mind now that we have moved on, whether it's for better or for the worse, and kind of sensitivity towards things like auctioning, the slave trade, rape, just things like that are no longer acceptable. And I think it's really good that Disney have embraced that and are updating the ride to kind of backtrack a little bit from that message. And I can see where a lot of people are coming from with this, saying, no, this is Walt's original ride. He envisioned that scene, and there's a lot of purists out there that hold and regard anything that Walt was involved in really highly, and I get it, I 100% get it, but in this instance I think this is one case where the change is actually going to be for the better. This scene, when I first seen it, my first trip to Walt Disney World was in 2002, and I love Pirates of the Caribbean, not realising that I was actually watching the lesser version of Pirates of the Caribbean, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed Pirates of the Caribbean. I was instantly in love with the setting and the scene and the storyline, as loosely told as it is while you're on the attraction. And for me, my favourite scene is the auction scene. We want the redhead, show us your larboard side, and it's an amazing scene. However, I was highly uncomfortable when I first sat there and went through that scene. It is uncomfortable to see, particularly in 2002, pirates auctioning off women for trade as if they're prizes and possessions. And I'm not one of those people that's a hyper feminist, but I don't think it's a positive message, especially not for a Disney theme park. You don't come to Disney and expect to see, kind of taboo topics, the things that happen and are awful to people. There are still people out there in the world who are being affected by the illegal slave trade, particularly the sex trafficking trade, especially in parts of Europe and definitely in parts of Africa. I think there's a very easy fine line where we glamorize what pirates are versus show the reality of what pirates are. And I think this is the case across all of Walt Disney World. They don't necessarily show the true reality of what everything is. They glamorize it. They tell a story. They're not there to depict history. I can understand the argument that people have that we should talk about it and it's a discussion point and you've got the right to explain to your children why that is and why it's bad and this, that and the other. Nobody does. Nobody goes to Walt Disney World in this day and age and expects to be educated. Unfortunately, they don't. People go to Walt Disney World and expect to be entertained, and they want to be entertained. Gone are the days where the Epcot Centre was about teaching people and, engaging people on a cerebral level. People don't want to be cerebralized, for lack of a better word, when they go to Walt Disney World. They want to be entertained the easiest and fastest way possible. So you could argue to some extent that society is dumbing down. And it is, unfortunately. We all now, live our lives by 6-second videos and, memes and viral videos. That is how we interpret information. People's attention spans are a lot smaller. People don't have the time in their heads anymore to kind of look at something like the auction scene and kind of get into a discussion with their friends and family as to is that appropriate and why that was a bad thing and pirates were terrible, but they're also great because they go swashbuckling, they go off on great adventures. People don't have those conversations that they used to. People sit there, they get on that boat, they go around, wow, that was great, look at that, that's cool, and they take it at face value. It's only the hardcore fans who sit there and debate the greatness of these scenes and the smaller details and kind of, how times change and know the history at the end of the day of how these rides have come about from going back years. I kind of got into a discussion with somebody on Facebook about this scene and kind of why I actually think it's a great change, and I think it's a very progressive change, and I think it's a change that needs to happen. And he kind of implied that it's Disney pandering to the politically correct crowd, and my answer back to that was, you only pander to people when you need their money. And let's be honest, Disney don't necessarily need people's money. They are at capacity. The parks, as we know, generally all year round now are at capacity. They don't need to pander to people to get people to come in. This is a change they've made because they want to make the change. They are making a statement. There's no denying that by making this change, but they're not doing it because they want to fit in with the social justice warriors or the political correct crowd or, the snowflakes. That's not what this is about. This is them making a change because they think it's the right change to make, because they think, given today's values and the values of the Disney company, this is them making a change because they feel it's the right thing to do, and I agree with them. Guys, there's been a history of this already with Pirates of the Caribbean. Disney have been slowly changing the storyline over time, and in the eyes of many people, been making it more politically correct. I'm sure we're all aware of the time where the scene of I guess she's a housewife, was originally being chased by a pirate, and that scene has now been flipped, whereby she's now chasing off the pirate. That change shocked me. That when that went through, I was shocked that the auction scene didn't get changed as well. You've got this scene here where they're saying that women shouldn't be victims and women shouldn't be chased, but then you go around the corner and there's women being auctioned off. It was just a juxtaposition of what they were trying to do narrative-wise. I think we need to move on from this Walt purist opinion of the parks that things can't change, things have to stay the same, and I think we're in an era at the moment where Disney are actually making some pretty radical changes. Just look at California with what they're doing for Star Wars Land, and how they're just kind of reshaping the rivers of America and the railroads to get that into the resort. They're not afraid at the moment, and I'm quite excited by this new Disney, who are kind of willing to just turn the rulebook on its head and turn the plot of the park on its head and just start from scratch. I think it's quite exciting. I don't think we're sending the right message to them by being so outraged by something like this. On the grand scheme of things, this is quite a small change. I've been waiting for this change, to be honest, for about 14 years since my first visit, because I've always thought it wasn't appropriate and it wasn't right. Okay, let's talk about a bigger issue. You go through Pirates of the Caribbean and there isn't actually a single female pirate. Unless I'm missing something, correct me if I'm wrong, but up until today there's never been a female pirate on that attraction. And I've always thought in my head that the Red Wench would make a much better pirate than a wench. She looks the part. She looks like she's ready to go out there and do some buccaneering. So I don't think this is that big of a change, to be honest. If I was to be honest, in my own little dialogue in my head when I go through that ride, I always think she's one step away from becoming a pirate. I think it's important that we remember that the parks are constantly evolving. Look at some of the stuff they've done in Peter Pan, where they've now added video mapping into the attraction, and it just moves the attraction forward so much and brings her up to date. And I think it's important to bear that in mind, that they're bringing these attractions up to date. It's not appropriate anymore to have scenes of women being auctioned. No matter how you wash it about it's historically accurate or it's what Walt originally designed, it's just not right at the end of the day to be seeing women being sold in a family-friendly attraction. And that's the thing we all need to remember. It's a family-friendly attraction, and the Walt Disney Company have always held family values above everything else. Everything has to be appropriate for families. It has to represent what families will and can discuss. If you want to, by all means, when you get out of the ride, turn around and say that's not what pirates are like. They would actually behead you, and then they would take mum away, and they would be auctioning her off to the nearest person who would have her, and they probably would have raped her on the way and maybe killed her after they raped her. If that's the narrative you want to spin, then by all means, you're more than welcome to spin that narrative to your children. However, personally, I wouldn't want to sit through that version of the ride, and personally, if I did have children, I wouldn't want them going through that version of the ride. I quite like the yo-ho, it's a pirate life for me version of the attraction, particularly one where swashbuckling and adventure is at the forefront of the narrative and not raping, pillaging, and the slave trade. Guys, let me know what you think about this issue. I know there are a lot of hardcore Disney fans out there that are outraged by this change. However, I've also seen quite a lot of posts and tweets and comments from other people who think that this is actually a change that needs to be done, whether it's for political correctness reasons or whether or not it's just appropriateness and tone for the parks. Chime in below, let me know, give me a subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and give me a like because it helps me know that I'm doing something right and you like hearing from me, and hopefully if you like it, there'll be more.